Okay, we're going to try the dirty birdies activity here. Your paper might look just a little bit different than this. I'm going to print some more specific directions on here for you to do this activity. So the first thing that I want you to do is if you were able to gather a feather to do this activity, you might have like craft feathers in your house. I do, not sure why. Or if you were able to find a feather outside, you could use that. And just take a look. Let's just observe that feather here. And if you weren't able to get a feather, then you can follow along with mine. Notice how sort of soft and fluffy that feather is, how all the pieces are kind of spread out and feathery. When I touch it, it feels very soft. When it moves, notice how they kind of flap and they move around when we try to shake that feather. Okay. The next question is going to ask you to drop a few drops of water onto the feather. I have a little dropper bottle here with some water in it. If you have like a medicine dropper, if not, you can use a spoon. But the key here is to just drop a couple drops at a time. Don't pour water over it because that's going to defeat our purpose here. But notice what happens as I drop a few drops of water onto our feather. Notice how most of those drops of water just kind of rest right on top of that feather. Notice how they're even kind of gathered together in little balls of water, it looks like almost. And when I pick it up, some of those will even roll right off the feather. And notice how it doesn't those drops of water don't really stick too much. So the edges of the feather get wet, but it doesn't really affect it too much. So we want to think about, why would that be a good characteristic for a bird to have on their feathers? How would that help them in their environment? All right. All right, the next question is going to ask you to drop some oil into the bucket of water. Now, if you are using the bucket that we already used for the previous activity, it might have food coloring in it, and that's fine, you can do that. And what we just want to observe is, how does the oil affect the water? How is the oil in the water? And if you look, and I'll kind of go on the side here so you can kind of see that the oil rests on top of the water. You can see it just layering there, and that's what oil does. It doesn't soak into the water. It just kind of rests on top of it. Okay. All right. So moving on to page 2. So it's going to ask you now to run your feather through the oil and then to make some observations of what's happening. So I'm going to take my feather and I'm just going to run it through the top of the water here to just sort of kind of pick up some of that oil on my feather. Okay. Notice what happens when I run my feather through the oil. And when I pull it back up through the oil, what does it look like? So make some observations now again and think about what's going on here. Notice you can even see like those shiny beads of oil kind of sticking to that feather. All right, how would this affect a bird? Why would this be a problem for a bird? All right, the next question asks you to predict how we're going to be able to best clean this bird feather. Write an if, then, because hypothesis, and your choices are cotton ball, just a plain cotton ball, some water, some hand soap, or some dish soap. Okay, and don't forget, in your if, then, because statement, you're not going to use first person. So no I, we, me, none of that. All right. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is try to observe while I'm trying to clean. So the first thing that I'm going to try is just a cotton ball, and I'm just going to try to wipe the oil off my feather. All right, so I was able, you can see on my cotton ball, able to pick up some of the oil on my feather, but if you still look at my feather, you can see the pieces are still sticking together, and I can still feel the oil on there. So it worked a little bit, but it didn't work great. All right, the next thing that I'm going to try is a cotton ball dipped in plain water. All right, I'm just going to dip this cotton ball in some water here. I'm going to try again. I'm just going to run it over my feather and see what's going on. Can I still feel the oil on that cotton, on that feather? I can. So I was able to clean up more of it with just the water, but not all of it with the water. All right. The third thing that I want to try is just a drop of hand soap. So I've got just some hand soap here. I'm going to put one drop onto my cotton ball, and I'm going to see if that is going to work. Right? That definitely helped a lot, right? You can see the difference here, but there's still a little bit of oil left on this. So let's try the last one. And the last one is going to be dish soap. And I want you just to look really carefully at the labeling on the dish soap here. I'm not going to say anything else, but I want you to read what it says. Okay? All right. Let's put a couple drops of dish soap on there. And let's see if that is able to really clean that feather. All right. So you can see now when I'm feeling it, does it still look stuck together? It really does. And so now we'd have to rinse the soap off. I'm going to rinse it off in some water. But if you look at the feather in the water, notice how those pieces are just starting to kind of start floating around again. And if we were able to kind of brush the water out of it, and let's just try and dry it off a little bit. I'm going to try and dry it off with this paper towel I have here. Normally we would kind of let them sit out for a little bit and just kind of observe what might happen if we were able to let that dry off. Okay. But you can see that even though the pieces are wet, they're not sticking together quite as badly as they were when we first pulled it through that oil. Do you think I got every drop of oil off there? Probably not, but did I get enough? Maybe. All right. So then you're going to go back to your sheet and you're going to talk about which material cleans your feather the best and why. And then think about how cleaning materials might affect other wildlife in an area. So yes, maybe it's going to work to clean your feather, but how is that going to get into the ecosystem, and is it going to affect other things in that ecosystem? All right? Okay, sounds good. Good luck, guys.